There's a storm brewing down under, an Australian rivalry that's captured millions and costing billions. And no, we're not talking about Kylie and Danny Minogue. Right now, Hobart and Melbourne are locked in a battle for supremacy, one that's ignited an unprecedented construction blitz, is reshaping cities and fundamentally upending entire economies. Like all good stories, this one's about hubris, revenge, sex, death, and really big buildings. Welcome to the $4 billion museum war. Now, if you're not Australian, you're probably wondering where on earth Hobart actually is. It's on that bit of Australia that's so often sadly lopped off world maps. It shouldn't be. Tasmania is an island of wonders, the Tasmanian Devil, Hannah Gadsby and Mona, the Museum of Old and New Art, the largest privately funded museum in the Southern Hemisphere. It's been described as a subversive adult Disneyland, and its exhibits range from the serene to the truly surreal.
We've got from everything, from paintings to toothbrush to porcelain.
We're not only looking at works, but some works, or many works, look at us.
Boy oh boy, has Mona made the mark.
The museum's garnered a cultural cachet that's lured in millions of visitors, and tourism is now the biggest industry in the state, a fact largely attributed to the Mona effect. So many visitors were coming from China that Qantas and Jetstar added more flights just to keep up.
I think it can be said without a shadow of a doubt that Mona has played an important role in the nearly 50% increase in the number of visitors coming to Tasmania since it opened.
It's thought that Mona and its offshoots have helped to add more than $2.3 billion a year to the state's economy. The whole thing is the pet project of millionaire David Walsh, the so-called Willy Wonka of Tasmania. He wanted to create something extraordinary for his home state after making his fortune developing a gambling system that turns over billions of dollars every year.
Arguably, I'm a complete waste of space, so it would be remiss not to do something, and yet it's arguable that this something was a huge long shot.
To preserve historic houses on the site, the team at Fender Katsoulidis designed most of the museum to be underground. The experience of entering Mona is described as similar to the ancient city of Petra. It's carved into the Triassic sandstone cliffs of the Berriedale Peninsula and extends some 12 metres below the ground. Visitors descend a series of zigzagging, overlapping staircases into a space with no windows. The idea was to create an atmosphere of danger and foreboding that's appropriate for a museum whose self-described themes are sex and death. Once you're in, the exhibits are, well, pretty out there. Perhaps the most famous was Wim Delvoye's machine, which replicates the human digestive system and turns food into feces that's excreted daily. That's right, you pay them to go and see it. Now, this could have been the end of the story. An eccentric millionaire builds an avant-garde museum and saves his home state from economic ruin. Only it isn't. Enter Melbourne. You might not have heard of Hobart, but you should have heard of this place, a city of nearly 5 million people that's on track to be Australia's largest by 2027. It's frequently ranked as the world's most livable city and has been featured maybe a few too many times on this channel. It's got skyscrapers, the Olympic Games, world-class restaurants, and has even been called the country's cultural capital. Until recently, that is.
Victorian business owners face an uncertain future with JobKeeper support now finished.
Governments are throwing enormous amounts of money at the problem.
But there are still major concerns this won't be the end of critical worker shortages.
The pandemic wreaked havoc on many economies, but Melbourne was hit especially hard. The city had one of the world's longest lockdowns, affecting every industry, but having a particularly devastating impact on arts and tourism. Hobart's been steadily but surely taking from Melbourne's cultural status, and Melbourne's been unable to do anything about it. But restrictions have now lifted, and the stakes are high. Melbourne has announced the NGV Contemporary, otherwise known as the Fox, a $1.7 billion project that'll rival London's Tate Modern for size. Described as a once-in-a-generation cultural landmark, the new museum will feature more than 13,000 square metres of dedicated exhibition space, more than double that of Mona, and it's set to become the country's largest gallery dedicated to contemporary art. Designed by Angelo Candelipus and Associates, the enormous new museum will anchor Melbourne's arts precinct, an area of the city now being radically transformed to the tune of several $billion. New elevated public gardens are being added to the site. Southbank Boulevard is turning away cars and partially becoming a public park. Spaces for outdoor events and performances are being created. A new centre of creativity is going to be built alongside the existing arts centre, and new connections and underground services are being carved beneath the city. It's been called the largest cultural infrastructure project in Australia's history, and once it's complete, it'll be home to one of the highest concentrations of arts, cultural and creative organisations anywhere in the world. The transformation isn't happening somewhere on the outskirts of Melbourne either. It's all being built right smack in the middle of one of Australia's biggest cities. Mona, by contrast, is accessed by ferry and sits on the edge of Hobart. But Hobart isn't giving up without a fight. With Melbourne going big, there are now plans to add an enormous cantilevered hotel over Mona. The $400 million development will include a sprawling 3-storey library, theatre, spa, and an outdoor concert stage. There have also been long gestating plans to upgrade the waterfront surrounding Mona. That $2 billion project could take more than 30 years, but it would transform the former industrial site into another landmark for the city, complete with a brand new Aboriginal history centre. Enormous amounts of cash are being splashed everywhere you look. Kylie would be spinning around just to keep up with it all, and Danny, well, we don't really know her songs. Both Mona and the Melbourne Arts Precinct are transforming their respective cities for the better, and for all the time that the battle to be Australia's cultural capital rages, it's the public that's really winning. If you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.